Devin, earlier this evening, I was meant to speak to Robert Make, who's in charge of fuel pricing. That discussion, of course, ongoing between the Department of Energy and Treasury. Unfortunately, guess what? He's been load shed. So we hope to chat to him tomorrow about what they're going to do around long-term plans to control the price of fuel. But there's been a huge blockade and a protest about fuel. And this is the real worry, isn't it? Tell us about it.
Yes, I mean, those concerns that you mentioned played itself out again, and this time on the N4 highway. So what had happened is Mpumalanga police have made a few arrests. We had disruptions to traffic on the N4 in Mbombela. And the protests were believed to be over those high fuel prices. Well, CEO of the Road Freight Association, Gavin Kelly, joins me now. Gavin, thanks very much indeed for your time. We understand that those blockades are now cleared, but how extensive was this? And who exactly staged this protest? Was it truck drivers?
Good evening, Devin. Good evening to your viewers. Yeah, very good question. I think it's the average citizen in South Africa that's taken to the streets. There were a number of organizations and or affiliations that participated in that protest, and that was around Mbombela and along the N4. And we will know that there were representatives from various types of organizations, both trucking, there was taxi, and there was local communities who'd got involved. I don't think it's in any way it's anything like what we saw on the N3, where we had something around the foreign driver matter or foreigners within the country taking jobs from locals. This just seems to be locals deciding they've had enough, they cannot afford this, and they want to make something.
All right, Gavin, we're kind of losing you intermittently, but I'm going to go on. The reason why we actually wanted to chat to you as well, because just given the fact that so many companies had started using that Maputo corridor, given our challenges with the blockades on the N3, as you say, and the floods. I was just wondering if this severely affected, let's say, some of our exports destined for those ports in Maputo. Did it?
Well, Devon, every time we stop the logistics chain running, even for a couple of hours, it has a knock-on effect. And unfortunately, these days, the logistics chain works on a theme called just in time, or on that principle. So it does have a knock-on effect. It doesn't seem as if there were large effects this time round. But, touch wood, let's hope that this isn't going to be something that happens continuously, because there are always those return legs or those onward journeys that some of these trucks had to have made that probably were missed by a number of hours, which can be a problem in terms of penalties or missing ships.
Yeah. And I just want to shift focus. Of course, many of those trucks chose that corridor as a result of what had happened, both with ports, the floods, the blockades on the N3, and chose to move to that route. So I want to shift on now to that plan that was signed, what is it, about 2 weeks now, to end the blockades on the N2. There was an 11-point plan. You were part of that. Any developments on that one, Gavin?
Well, we've seen the Minister of Employment and Labour being quite vocal around a number of points. And then, of course, the Minister of Home Affairs. And the Minister of Home Affairs has made it very clear that the types of visas or permissions that a fair amount of foreigners have in this country, and with those permissions they can work, those permissions are not going to be renewed. So we really, really hope that those who are in the country who are working with those sort of papers are going to take the opportunity to go to the system that has been set up according to the Minister. Of course, Devin, the crucial part is that the Minister of Labour does get the power or the organisation together. He's got the power in terms of legislation, but he needs the power in terms of people power, in terms of inspectors, to get to those employers who continue to employ non-registered, illegal, non-documented, call them what you will, but continue to employ the very thing that's causing the problem. And we hope that's going to take root. And we really, really hope. We've seen some movement, but I think we need to get going a lot faster.
Yeah, and just quickly before I let you go, Gavin, so many of those the truck drivers of your member organizations would have got into their trucks this morning a completely different petrol and diesel price. I mean, I'm just wondering again, it seems as though we speak about this every month. We have a fuel price adjustment. It wasn't such a great morning this morning for many of those drivers filling up, because it's a completely different balance sheet they're dealing with now when you look at the price of fuel.
Correct, Devin. Over the last 18 months at least, fuel prices gone up by 50%. Your business model might not be tweaked to deal with that. So now every month you've got to start tweaking to try and find how you're going to make that extra cost. There are many guys who are paid on a 30, 60, 90-day process. They don't get paid immediately once they've delivered the load. And of course, you want your fleet to continue operating. So you're caught between the devil and the deep blue sea in terms of continuing to shell out for fuel, continuing to run your fleet, but you're not getting the revenues in. And it's getting tougher and tougher. And those who have been absolutely flattened through COVID, they've been flattened through these last set of fuel increases, and they're really on their knees now.
Yeah. All right, so we'll wait and see what happens from government with some sort of sustained relief. Thanks very much, CEO of the Road Freight Association, Gavin Kelly.